It's going to be some good content. So today we're going to talk about cost to build an ADU, budgeting strategies, as well as some typical lending options that are out there, and how do you estimate or cost estimate for an ADU. So again, I like to break it down at the beginning so you know exactly what you're going to get. You know exactly how long it's going to take, and you can get any information that you need specifically. So first thing I do want to say is I'm not a financial advisor. I'm not a tax attorney, and I am not a banker. So if you're going to take any of this advice, please check with either your banker, your tax accountant, or someone that can give you financial advice, because this is just for reference, just to give you a loose idea of some of the things that go into building an ADU, especially when we talk about some of these loan products. There are a ton of things out there nowadays as opposed to a few years back. So everyone should have a really great option depending on their individual circumstance. Again, that's dependent on your individual circumstance. So make sure you take this information, do your own research. If you have any specific questions, throw those in the chat or reach out to me personally. I'll attach some of my contact information at the end of this webinar, and we'll make sure we get you in touch with the right folks. So again, 4 sections today. Typical ADU build cost. We'll break that down by square footage, different type of ADU builds, things like that. And then we're going to move into different types of ADU financing. What are the different options? What are some of the pros and cons? And basically what's our takeaway, and how can you do a little bit more research? And then we'll get into cost estimating, and then wrap this all up with some budgeting strategies, and then ways that WellNest, in particular, when we go into projects, utilize those strategies to give our customers an advantage. So first, we'll start out with typical ADU build costs. Now, let's take a step back. A couple of weeks back, I did a general overview of what ADUs are. If you would like to get more information on that, please check out that video. But today, we'll talk about the 4 basic types. So we have a garage conversion. We have a demolition and rebuild. So that's either you have a shed, an old unit in your backyard, or a garage that you tear down and rebuild. We also have a prefab unit, which means, you do site prep, you buy a unit offline, they build it in a factory and then ship it off to you. And then we have stick built or site built ADUs. That's what we do here at WellNest. We also have a version of a prefab unit, but for the most part, we panelize our wall systems, our roof systems, deliver those on site, and we build on site. So we have a great amount of flexibility. Now, getting into the cost of those different types of builds. So when we're talking about high end to low end, anywhere here in the Bay Area, San Francisco Bay Area today, you're gonna build, you have a construction cost of about $250 per square foot, all the way up into, typical range $500 per square foot. Now, the more specialized features obviously can go higher. If you go a little bit less quality features, that price per square foot can go lower. The way I like to think about square footage or price per square foot when we're talking about construction, I break it out in 2 different parts. You have labor and materials. And the reason we do that is because labor is typically going to be pretty equivalent in any area that you build in. But when we're talking about material costing, again, it's dependent on what types of materials, how high end, how low end, quality materials. If you're looking to do this for, specialized features like we do for seniors or renters, or if you're looking more for a standard, really durable renters package, those type of things are really going to affect that per square footage material cost. So I just like to break those 2 out so we can really break down and get kind of down to the nitty gritty of what those costs should look like. So within square footage, per square footage cost, you should consider 3 different things. You have your hard cost, you have your soft cost, and then you have your fees. Fees would include anything like permits, utility hookups, any impact fees that you might incur, things like that. Soft costs will be architectural design work, any engineering work that you're going to have done, things that you don't necessarily consider when you want to manage a project yourself, but they have to be considered when you're building an ADU. And then hard costs are going to be things like construction, labor, materials, things like that. So those are the 3 types of costs. Now, at the end of all of that, that range between 250 to 550 square feet, we like to say this: you're going to get what you pay for. So if you think you're getting a deal on labor costs, and it may be a friend, it may be a neighbor, it may be, you're going to do some of the building yourself. Just know you have to still consider those costs, because somebody's doing that labor. Either you're doing that labor, your neighbor's doing that labor, or your friend. But that also takes management. So that takes someone scheduling material orders, making sure that guys are coming up, showing on up to site on time. And even if you're not paying that out of pocket, you're still using your personal resources, either your time, energy, or money, to make sure those things are getting done. So you're going to get what you pay for there. And at the end of the day, remember, we're building homes here. ADUs are considered living spaces in the state of California. It's a great opportunity for us to add housing. But at the end of the day, you're not building a box, you're not building a shed, you're building a home. And so when it comes to health and safety, cities take that very seriously. When the state started passing these ADU legislation laws, those were serious considerations, that health and safety were going to be top tier number one. So remember that when you're paying for these builds, that you're looking to build a home that can last for up to 100 years. So you really want to make sure you do your due diligence and making sure you're dealing with the right folks, right materials, and getting the right things done on your property. All right, so we'll jump into what everybody asks questions about most, and that's the different financing options for ADUs. Now, in the past, you really were limited to basically a home equity line of credit or a cash out refi. Those are the two main types of financing option for ADUs, on top of savings and credit cards and things like that. But today we have a ton of different options. Each of them has a some pros, some cons, and is dependent on your situation. So I guess we should address the elephant in the room with interest rates. I know that's been a heavy subject on people's minds. Now, again, I'm not a financial advisor. I would suggest you reach out to either your financial advisor or real estate financing expert, or someone in the field. But from our experience, again, the interest rates right now give us a really good opportunity to build this middle missing housing, when we're talking about rental incomes or savings on sending a parent or a loved one into a nursing facility, or even for children or loved ones or family members who are looking for additional living space. This is a great opportunity in time to either create savings or create rental income cash flow that will not only cover the impact of the interest rates, but also it built-in equity into your property, which then down the line we have the opportunity to refinance, pull that equity out, utilize it for different things that may come up in your future. So I would say focus less on the interest rates, focus more on the priorities of the build, what you may save, and opportunities where you can create cash flow, because those things are going to be the most important when you're looking at building an ADU. All right, so now that that's out the way, let's jump into it. So first thing up is a cash out refi. And again, I'm not a financial expert, or I don't work necessarily in the banking industry. So I'm going to reference some notes here, just so when you see me look off film, that's what I'm doing, so I can get you some proper information. So cash out refi, basically you're refinancing your current mortgage and you're using the equity as cash to build or utilize for whatever you want. In this case, it will be to build an ADU. So number one pro, all the money up front. You consolidate your build and your mortgage into one loan, so you have a consolidated loan product. And that's really the two big pros of a cash out refi. Now, when we're looking at cons, if you had low interest rates and you're trying to maintain those low interest rates, that's obviously going to affect those low interest rates. And if you don't want to affect your current mortgage, that's another thing that a cash out refi obviously is going to raise the price of your current mortgage. But like I mentioned before, if you're looking to cash flow, rent this unit out, or save money on maybe a nursing facility or a loved one having to rent a home, those are going to be the advantages of doing a cash out refi. And a takeaway, so I'll do that this same model with each one. I'll give you a pro, some cons, and then the takeaway. And the takeaway here is, if you plan a cash flow, an ADU cash out refi may be a good option. And then again, you have the opportunity, once you gain some more equity in that home, to do a refinance later. So always a good option for folks with a good amount of equity. Next, we're going to talk about a HELOC, or a home equity line of credit. Different from a home equity loan, but we'll cover that next. So a home equity line of credit, basically, you have a little bit better borrowing power. So typically they'll go up to about 85% of your equity that you currently have in your home. So if you bought your home for 200,000, it's now worth 600,000. They'll take 85% of that 600,000 and loan you up to that existing equity amount. So great opportunity for you to bump up that borrowing power. One of the cons, you can have adjustable interest rates, which again can go up over time. And again, this is tied to your equity. So it's a certain amount of money that you get loaned based on how much equity you have in your home. Takeaway, it's good if you have high equity and lower cash flow. It allows you to make payments on that equity line of credit over time versus having one big payment taken out. But you won't have a lump sum of cash for your project. So again, you'll have to schedule out your project, really get good at budgeting, and understand when funds are going to be needed for your build. All right, next up, home equity loan. So similar to a home equity line of credit, except it's a home equity loan. They give you one lump sum instead of giving you a line of credit that you can draw on. And some of the pros here are that it's a complete second position in most cases, which means that you have your mortgage, which is first position, your loan, which is second position. So again, if you have a great interest rate on your mortgage and you don't want to touch that, you can take out a second, have a little bit of higher interest rate, but that can balance out over those two rates. And again, like I just mentioned, one of the cons is that seconds tend to be a little bit higher interest rate, again, because a bank or a mortgage company is taking a little bit more risk by taking second position on that loan. Takeaway here, you get to use your equity. You don't have to refi if you have good interest rates, and you can refi in the future with added equity to balance out those two loans and when interest rates drop back down. All right, let's keep moving along here. So next we have, which is a unique product that's come out more recently, or that's been utilized more recently for ADUs, and it's called a home equity investment loan. Now, there's a couple of companies. Please, if you're interested in this after it's described, reach out and we can kind of refer you to some of these loans or let you know a little bit more about them. So a home equity investment loan is basically a loan out on your home where you're giving up some of the equity to get that loan. Now, again, some of the pros here are you're not taking on debt, so it's debt free. You don't have monthly payments. So again, if your cash flow is an issue and you're doing this for a loved one, you don't have to make monthly payments on this. And then typically you're going to have faster approvals with some of these loans. All right, some of the cons now. Now, they typically require some form of construction plans. Obviously, that is applicable with ADU. So they want to see what you're going to build and how you're going to utilize it. And then investors typically do an appraisal on the home, and you're subject to that appraisal. So again, if I'm investing in your home as a home equity investment loan, I'm going to maybe value your home at 80% of the current market value. So then when I get appreciation or depreciation, it's not, I have an advantage as an investor into this property. So again, they typically go about 80 to 85% of the home's value, very similar to a home equity loan. Takeaways here. So it's a good option if you can't access large loans or some of the equity in your home. You don't have enough money to complete a build. So maybe you have enough equity in the home to partially fund an ADU, but you need a little bit more. This is a great option. But you may want to take out some of those higher interest rate loans before you look into giving up equity. So again, you may have a 2-3% interest rate on your original mortgage. You may look to do a cash out refi that's going to bump that up to 7%. That may be a better option here if you want to maintain equity. So just some considerations there. Great new option. Next, we have one that's been around for a while, but has been recently adapted for ADUs, and that's called a renovation loan. Now, some of the pros of a renovation loan, again, you apply for it and they give you a lump sum of money for your project. And you can typically take up to 90% of the future value of that project. So again, you're getting a renovation loan for a $200,000 build for an ADU. They will fund up to typically $180,000 of that loan to get that unit built, if that's going to be the future equity of that ADU. So that's a good thing. Cons here. So limited time frame, or sorry, that's the wrong one. DTI must be low. So debt to income ratio must be low. So if you have higher debts and a lower income, they're going to look at that as part of the way to qualify you for one of these loans. And then it requires enough equity in your home to get that loan. So again, if you're not showing that in the future, there's going to be a ton of equity, then they're going to look at that as a way to verify or qualify this as a good product for you. Takeaways. Great option for an ADU, but you need to have low debt to income ratio. And obviously you're going to need to have some future equity built into the home to make sure that you can get out enough money to complete that ADU project. All right, another one that's been around for a while, kind of closely related to a renovation loan, is a construction loan. Slightly different though. So some of the pros of a construction loan is it's not dependent on equity. So a construction loan is based on the value that you're going to put onto your property. Typically, you're going to see construction loans in new home builds. So if I were to buy a blank lot, I get a construction loan, build my home, and then look to really quickly refinance that under a traditional mortgage. So that's a little bit of history on construction loans. Now, you do have higher borrowing power. So if my home is going to be valued at $300,000 after it's built, they will take that into consideration. So you really don't have a limit necessarily on that borrowing power. Some of the cons. So again, limited time frame to complete your project. So most construction loans set a really strict timeline that you have to complete that project and refi that loan. And typically that refinance is within 2 years. So if I get a construction loan today, I have 2 years to refinance that product, and they may create even a shorter time frame to complete that project. And then again, some of the requirements with that construction loan are going to be a little bit more stringent. So the bank may want to know what the design plans look like before they approve the loan, or they may want to look at who's a contractor and when they're going to submit for permits. So a little bit, a few more restrictions from a construction loan. Now, the takeaway, typically better for those who have low equity, looking to do something a little bit different than an ADU. I would say maybe if you're interested in doing like a SB9 lot split. So that's where I have a main home, I build an ADU, I'm going to split my lot and create 2 different properties. That looks more like what you would take a traditional construction loan out, because again, you're going to have a separate lot, main dwelling that can get a traditional mortgage. So you're going to be able to refi that for a good amount of money, especially here in California. So if you're looking at doing like an SB9 lot split, I would consider a construction loan. And then last but not least on my list here is our WellNest in-house financing. So what our finances is going to typically look like is a home equity loan. We do take second position, and I'm going to highlight some of the pros of our product here. So it's a fixed rate second mortgage, so you don't have an adjustable rate. The loan is up to 80% of the home's equity. There's a minimum 640 credit score. Again, if you're up above 700, obviously you're going to have an advantage. But again, don't be deterred. Come in, talk to our financing partner, and see if your credit score can still get approved for this loan, because in most cases, they're willing to work. Again, we work with local credit union, highly valued Key Point Credit Union, great partner. Up to 50% of debt to income ratio for all the loans. And again, flexible payment terms and options that can be discussed with our financing partner. So some of the takeaways of our loan, you will need equity in your home. Some may see that as a con, but obviously if you're going to be taking money out against your house, you're going to need that equity there. And then it's a great option if you're looking to work with a local credit union. So I'll talk a little bit now about some of the other options that aren't that great. And this is why we value working with a local company who you can see, you can touch, you know exactly what they're doing with the money in the community. So when you look at something like a high interest personal loan or utilizing credit cards for an ADU build, those aren't necessarily the best options you can go with. And I'll tell you why. Number one, they're unsecured. So they're not backed by equity or anything else, which means a much higher interest rate, because obviously they're going to be taking on that risk. Next, you're going to get potentially some predatory loans. So loans that, I won't say any names, but where companies will come in and make this look like a grant program, but on the back end, what they're really trying to do is fund privately funded companies to then get you a loan that's going to hike up an interest rate, and then you have the potential of losing your home. Now, there are some great options on the grant front. California has a great ADU grant program that was funded for $100 million. Obviously, they ran out of that really quick within the first 3 months of opening applications, I believe, something like that. But what we've been fighting for on the state level is to get an additional allocation of funds for that grant. Right now, they've allocated an additional 50 million towards building homes in California, and we're really right now fighting to get that 50 million dedicated to this ADU grant, so homeowners can get up to $40,000 to cover pre-development fees, design, permitting, things like that, so that they can build an ADU. So if you're interested in helping us fight for that grant and make sure those funds go towards building more ADUs here in California, reach out, let us know. We'll tell you exactly some of the steps you can take. And also that will allow you to be one of the first ones to know if that grant opens back up, so we can get you in there to get your application submitted so that you can be part of this grant program. So again, there are a ton of great programs out there, but be careful, double check, do your due diligence, and make sure you're talking to multiple people and getting different advice on those different loan products. All right, so that was the bulk. Now we're going to jump into cost estimation. Cost estimation is something that you do when you're getting ready to start your project. Make sure you're getting the right amount of money out. Make sure you understand all the things that need to be considered for your project before you begin. Now, the biggest mistake folks make when they're building an ADU is they say, okay, my contractor said he can build this thing for $200 to $300 per square foot. So that's what I'm gonna budget for. I want 600 square feet. I'm gonna budget that amount of money to make sure my build can happen. And then you start with the project and you realize that there's some other fees that come into that into the project, and that's what I'm gonna cover today. So again, like I talked about earlier, there are 3 different types of costs that go into an ADU: hard cost, soft cost, and then fees. Hard costs are construction labor, materials, and then we have what we call special considerations. So that would be site prep or site specific elements, and then utility connections. So again, if you have maybe a large tree on your property, or you have a really big slope that might take a little additional site prep, or you may have a situation where you want to build on elevation, but you need to do pier and beam foundation. So now you have to dig down really far. So that's going to obviously take some excavation and some additional work. So those are some of those hidden costs that are still in the hard cost category, but most people don't really consider. Next, we have soft costs. So again, soft costs are going to be design, architectural work, engineering, property evaluation. So any type of arborist, cow green, energy efficiencies, things like that. And then you have HERS, which is the evaluation of your energy use in your new unit. And in most cases now, cities require an inspection paid for by the contractor to get a HERS rater to come out and inspect your unit and make sure that all your Title 24 is what you say it is on your permit documents. And that is a requirement for the contractor. So make sure, again, that's a question that most people aren't asking, but if they're not aware of that, that should be a red flag. All right, then we got fees. So fees are permits, utilities, inspections, and things like that. Impact fees, potentially depending on the size of your ADU and your city. And if we think about costs in this way, again, we talked about hard costs. That's going to be anywhere between $250 per square foot up to $500 per square foot. If we're looking at soft costs, that's going to range anywhere from about 8% through 15%. Again, that's your design, architectural, engineering, all the things you need to submit for those permits. And then if you think about fees, those are typically going to fall between 6% and 9% of that project. And then you have what we call fixed costs amongst all those areas. So again, someone might think, well, if I build a really small ADU, I'm going to save a ton of money. Well, that's not necessarily true, because some of these fees are what we call fixed costs, which means that architects are only going to go to a baseline number before it's not going to be profitable for them to do a design for you. So if you say have an architect who their baseline number is 400 square feet and they're going to charge you that fee regardless, you may want to build a 300 square foot ADU, but you're still going to be charged the same architectural fees that someone who's building a 400 square foot ADU. Again, this goes across all of those boards. So city's going to have fixed costs. Your project labor is going to have some fixed costs. Basically, what are our minimal costs to come out and do this work? So sometimes it's an advantage to build bigger, and in some cases, the cost you have an advantage to build a little bit smaller. We talked about that in our last webinar. If you're looking at, say, in California, most cities, you have a 800 square foot or 750 square foot benchmark. If you're under that benchmark, your process, impact fees, and other things are reduced substantially. Now, if you jump over that, say 751 or 801 square feet, then those impact fees and project costs really jump up and can cost you a lot. So make sure either you're doing your own research, comparing prices, or working with someone who understands exactly what's going on in the industry today. Again, ADU laws change every day. So I'll just keep pushing right along here. As an example, and I would typically write this down, but if you guys can follow along, I'll give you a really quick example of how you can calculate when you're doing a cost estimation, a roundabout number of how to estimate what you should be taking out if you're looking for a loan, or if you're looking at savings, what you should prepare to pay when you're looking to build an ADU. So first, let's get a number. Let's start out with the 750 square foot ADU. So you want to build a 1-bedroom, maybe, and with some additional office space, a bathroom, and a kitchen. 750 square feet. So let's average our hard cost out. So let's say we're going to get general labor around $300 per square foot, which is a really good number to start with here in the Bay Area. And then say we're going to start with some mid-range products. So here at WellNest, we don't sacrifice quality, and we use very specialized fixtures and finishes for our customers because we focus on seniors who need specialized features as far as grab bars, soft fall flooring, emergency alert devices, things like that, maybe an upgraded electrical for a bed that can raise up or lower. And then we focus on renters who we're going to focus on more durable materials and appliances so they don't have to be replaced as often, and they can hold up and they're very easily replaceable. And then we have trenders who are going to be some of the more trending features, things like pendant lighting or drawer dishwashers or things that are more trending in design today. So we do not sacrifice on our materials. But if you look at a range, you can range from about $50 per square foot up to about $100, $125 per square foot for really good materials. So let's average that out. Let's take it down to about $75 per square foot. So right now what we're working with is 750 square feet, about $375 per square foot in hard costs, which is going to put us at about $281,000, $250 for our basic build cost for all of our hard costs considered. Again, remember, this does not have our special considerations in mind. So this is a very flat lot. We don't have any issue with trees or fence lines or surveys or anything like that. So remember, we're not going to count those. So $281,250, that's our starting point for hard costs. Next, you want to look at your soft costs. Again, that's going to fall anywhere from 8 to 15%, depending on the quality of architect, your engineer, and some of those other trades. Let's start low. Let's jump down to 8%, the lowest, which is going to put us at about $22,500. So that's an additional cost on top of those hard costs. And then next, let's look at fees. So fees are going to fall anywhere from 6% to 9%. Now, again, we're under that 750 benchmark, so you're not going to have impact fees. We're not going to count if you have to record a survey with the county or any of those issues. So if we're looking at those, let's call it 6% and leave that at $16,875, excuse me. So if we're looking at a total ADU cost estimate that we could just jot down real quick, we're looking at $320,625 just as an estimate based on all those numbers that are typical numbers that you're going to have to pay to build a quality home here in the Bay Area. Now, if you're looking at special considerations and you want to know what those might cost, that's going to cost you anywhere from $5,000, $10,000 to up to $25,000. So if you do have slopes, fence lines, property disputes, if you may need a geotechnical survey, anything like that, those are going to be considerations and arborist considerations that you want to add into those costs that may bump up that price when you're doing an estimation. So that's how we cost estimate here. We, again, have very locked in numbers based on our contractors, our knowledge of the industry, so we can get that a little bit tighter to what it's going to be. But that's a way that you can do it at home if you want to get an idea of what it's going to cost you to build. All right, and the last and what I would consider one of the most important sections of today's webinar is our budgeting strategy. So how do you find a budgeting strategy that will work, that will get you through your project and make sure your project's done on time and on budget? And so I'm going to highlight 7 considerations that we have here at WellNest, and then I'm going to talk about how we implement those different strategies on a day-to-day during our projects to make sure that we can satisfy our customers and make sure we stay within our budget. So first things first, some of this stuff is going to be before you start your project. A big part of it should happen before you start your project. We like to think 75% of the project's done before we even break ground. And the reason we say that is if you schedule this, if you build your project timeline, if you build your budget, then you can consistently make adjustments based on factors that come up. I would say, and just about all projects, you're going to have some things that happen that you don't expect, but you will be ready to adjust if you prepare in the right way. So let me jump into it. Here are the seven steps to our strategy. So number one, look at historic data. So looking at historic data, what has been the trend in the marketplace? What are the cost of materials? What is the typical per square foot cost to build in the area? And a good one to tie to that, just real quick, is the cost per square foot to sell in your area, so you can understand how much equity is going to be going into your home. Right now in the East Bay area, we're looking at anywhere from about $400 per square foot up to about $650 per square foot of sale price. Now that's down 2% from just a year ago, but if you look at those costs, you can validate whether it's worth it to build an ADU or not, because you understand the equity that you're building onto your property. So look at some historic data, get some information about labor costs, material costs, things like that, so you have a really good idea of where you're starting. Next is reference lessons learned. So this, as a homeowner, you may not have done construction projects, or you may not be as familiar with construction projects, but here's where you should really lean heavily on the folks you're going to hire to do some of this project. If you're hiring an architect, maybe ask them, what are some issues that you run into in the past, and how do you mitigate those issues now? Or if you have a contractor and say a friend that's going to help you build your unit, ask them, hey, when you're doing construction on an ADU project, what are some typical things that you run into, and how can we mitigate those to make sure that those aren't going to happen during my build? So again, lessons learned, reference those lessons learned. That's a really good one. And then 3 is tied to that, leverage your experts. So biggest one, if you're going to build an ADU, city planning and building departments are a great place to start. Call down, see what they've been up to, see how many builds have happened in your area, what are some of the issues that they've run into, what are some of the requirements that you may not be aware of. Really lean on those experts to give you the knowledge and the expertise so that you can properly budget for what you're trying to build. So if that's a contractor, hey, what are some things that you run into the past that made this price really go up? Or what are these good prices that I'm looking at here for material or vendors? So lean on those experts. Next, confirm the accuracy of your budget. So look over your budget after you're finished up. And then you may want to reach out to some of the subcontractors. You may say, you know, my foundation is going to cost this amount. Let me reach out to a couple of contractors and see what they would estimate this job at. And then they'll give you an idea of how close you are to those numbers. Next, one of the big things that we do here, and it's extremely important during a project, is to baseline and then re-baseline. And what that means is at the beginning of a project, once you complete your budget, that's your baseline. Those are the numbers that you're working with to assume that's what's going to be spent during your project. Now, as your project goes along, like we said, just about every construction problem has, or project has some type of problems, whether that's delays, weather, material back orders, lead times, labor issues, all these things that can happen. You want to consider those and adjust for those as your project moves along. So if your project gets bumped back 2 weeks, is your painter going to charge you a little bit more? Are your material costs going to be a little bit more expensive? Is it going to cost you more to get your doors and windows a couple of weeks earlier to make sure that those can be installed at the right moments? So those are all considerations. As soon as you see it, look to correct it. Now, that's my next one, update in real time. So again, now when we're doing these builds, excuse me, when issues come up, update your budget. Don't just, it may get rough at times, especially if you're project managing and trying to coordinate contractors and make sure that guys are showing up to the job site. But if something happens in your project that's going to that's going to cost you more money or extend your schedule, make sure that you make that adjustment in real time. Go back to your budget, adjust for that so you can see what your end cost may look like. All right, and then last but not least, and the most important, is get back on track. So I can say just about every construction project, again, is going to have some type of issue that you didn't foresee. It may take longer in permitting. They may have different requirements. You may have a contractor get sick. They may have protocols that don't allow folks to buy materials from a certain company. When those things happen, adjust your budget, adjust your baseline, update it in real time, and get it back on track as quickly as possible. So if you have something that's happening up front, are there things on the back end that you can adjust in your budget to make sure you're accounting for those changes that happen up front? So those are the 7 major things. Again, historic data, reference lessons learned, leverage your experts, confirm with accuracy, set a baseline, and re-baseline that budget, update in real time, and then last, make sure you're getting back on track. Every budget, yes, and every project may get offline, but the most successful projects are those that get back on track faster. So look to get it back on track. And then last but not least, and what I consider most important, when you're going into a project, WellNest operates from a holistic mindset. We believe that from the start of a project, if you take the correct precautions, that includes budgeting, cost estimating, and analyzing what's the best financial product to go into your ADU build. We believe if you approach that up front, understand it up front, it's going to pay dividends on the back end. And here's how we approach our project. So first, we have our initial evaluation, And basically, we use all of our knowledge from our previous projects to make sure that we address everything that might be an issue all the way down through our certificate of occupancy when your ADU is done and we're handing you the keys. Now, we take all of that knowledge and make sure it's accounted for up front. If there are going to be survey issues, if at the end of the project they're going to want to see a HERS verification report, we make sure we get in touch with those people early. We know what those costs are, so we attack them early in our budget. And so on the back end, where all that stuff is taken care of. So you may hear different things from our company that you're not hearing from other companies, for the simple fact that we're not only thinking about today attracting you as a customer, but we're also thinking about how do we get your project to completion. Next, we have our pre-construction phase, which we incorporate project managers for every single one of our projects. We have contractors, we contact our vendors early, and we contact all those folks so early on in pre-construction because it gives us a real advantage during the project when it comes to budgeting for maybe the industry is going to face increase in products. So we're able to get our products from our vendors before those increases happen, maybe in the summertime. So in the wintertime, we may stock up on some products just to make sure that when your project comes along, we've gotten those at the best price for our customers. Same thing with contractors. We try to negotiate our contracts really early with our teams so that our team, we know we have the best team in the field, as well as we know we get them for the best rate for our customers. So again, our design process is extremely detailed to make sure that up front, we get all of those processes taken care of so that, again, 75% of your project should be set and in place before we even break ground. So that's something that we use as our advantage. Next, we have construction. So during construction is when everybody's rearing up and everybody wants to know what's happening, how's it going. And for us, our construction projects, we know they may have hiccups, they may have delays, they may have budget increases, but all those things are what our project managers handle on a day-to-day basis. Not only that, but we use project management software to adjust our baselines, to adjust our schedules, to communicate with our customers, and to make sure that we're solving problems in real time. So we're getting direct feedback that we can respond to today. And last thing is post-construction. And in post-construction, our goal is the same as yours. Our goal is to get through projects seamlessly, on time, and on budget, as efficiently as possible. And we're great at keeping our projects on time and on budget. And the biggest thing that we do, especially when we incorporate our project managers, our designers, our architects, our contractors, is we make sure that you as a customer get your priorities satisfied. So when you set your priorities, we document that, we note that, we keep that top of mind in every decision that you make. And as we work with you, our customers, we're going to give you our best advice based on our historic experience, our industry experts, our relationships with the cities, to make sure that you're getting the best information when you need it, how you need it, to make the best decisions to move forward. So again, this is a really big one for us, is budgeting strategy. It doesn't only incorporate how much money you're spending, which type of lending you're getting, but it incorporates the entire project. How do you keep it on time and on budget? And for our pre-developed designs, we've gone so far to offer a flat rate price because we know what materials go into it, we know what design elements go into it, and we know how much it takes to get it permitted and built. And that's it for me today. If you guys, again, have any questions, I'll drop my information in the chat here. It's bgrant, BGRANT, at wearewellnest.com. So don't be afraid to reach out and get any questions answered. Again, if you have any questions today, please drop those in the chat and we will definitely get to those.
Awesome. Well, thanks very much. I missed the because of my lovely technical difficulties, so apologies to all. But it was great. Everybody could hear you, so that's the important part. First of all, we have a question regarding being able to see this later. So people like the event, or they wanted to share it with their family and friends. It is being recorded, so can you let us know how we could see that later?
Yeah, so we do follow up after all of our events. We send out emails with links to the content. And again, this will be uploaded for reference later. But again, feel free to reach out to us if you would like any of this information sent directly to you.
Great. We have a question to share the showroom phone number, and that is 925-248-8736. Our website is www.wearewellnest.com. And then our email is info, INFO, at wellnest, WELLNEST.com. Looks like another question here. So suggestion or solution. So a lot of times people will find themselves in a situation with an elderly family member where an emergency comes up or something very unexpected comes up. And so they may have not been saving or might not have a lot of financial resource. Is there a way that they can get into, for example, an express unit without a lot of savings, just going with, hey, I have a good job, I have good credit? Is it something where I can get in with minimal amount of money up front?
Yeah, so I would say the first thing to answer this question is every individual is a little bit different. Every situation is a little bit different. I'll say number one, reach out. We have some great affiliates that can get out to your property, speak with you, talk about your individual situation, and find a solution for you. Again, we're a solution-based company. What Laura alluded to is our Wellness Pod Express, which is an ADU or a tiny home on wheels which allows us to deploy this unit a lot faster. So again, if you're going through an emergency situation and you're looking for a quick temporary housing, we have some options for you there. And we can do that even until you're ready for a more permanent solution, maybe where we can help you figure out what's the next best step. So I would say reach out, talk to our affiliates, learn about some of the products that we have, and we absolutely have temporary, emergency, and opportunity housing for those in need.
All right. Looks like there was another question regarding upcoming events. I just had to run and get my schedule. I mentioned this when I was having some technical difficulties at the beginning, so thanks for bearing with me. Some upcoming events that we have is next Thursday at our showroom here in Dublin. It's our third Thursday networking. It's taking place from 5 to 7 p.m. and we're going to be doing a healthy tailgate for kickoff of fall, and that's going to be sponsored by Jaffa Mediterranean Hummus. And then also we're going to have Rashid with New York Life here, and he's going to talk about some long-term care. Following that, we have September 28th is going to be another webinar, and Bakari can let you know what the details are on that shortly. But that'll be possibly from noon to 1. We may have to make an adjustment on that because we also have an event. It's the Nate Miley Healthy Living Fest that's going to be held at the Oakland Zoo. So that's going on between 9 and 2 that day. So we'll keep you posted on that. And what else do we have? October, we have some home and garden stuff going on. The first week, October 6th through 8th, there is at the fairgrounds in Pleasanton. And we also have a senior fair event on the 7th of October. That's Saturday from 9 to 12. That's at the Dublin Senior Center. So those are just a few of the upcoming things we have going on. And Bakari, did you mention at all the upcoming webinar that'll be in 2 weeks from now?
That's right. And Laura, you mentioned the Healthy Living Festival, which is a great opportunity for us to get in front of the community and express the different options that we have within our company. And Nate Miley puts together a great event over at the Oakland Zoo. So we will be participating in that event. That's going to be September 28th, I believe. And that will be our next webinar in our bi-weekly series. We did have it scheduled to be around our customer journey, which talks through exactly what customers go through from start to finish, what you can expect during an ADU build. Now we're thinking about doing maybe something creative and fun with at the Healthy Living Festival, where we maybe do some on-site, do an on-site webinar. So we might switch that up and do something more senior focused. That is a senior focused event. And then we might push back our customer journey webinar to next week, which we'll talk with our COO here at WellNest and sales lead, Bobby Arte. So look forward to next week being something fun, something different. We may still go through customer journey, or we may switch it up specifically for the Healthy Living Festival. So really looking forward to that event. It should be a great webinar as well as a really great event.
Yeah, so stay tuned for that. We'll keep you updated via email and make sure that everybody's aware of what's happening with that. So yeah, that's all I have. I will hopefully see everybody next week at the third Thursday. Otherwise, we will see you again in 2 weeks for the next webinar. Thanks, Bakari. Appreciate it. That was really valuable information.
Thank you again, Laura. Thank you for hosting. That was awesome. And thank everybody for coming out. We look forward to seeing you in a couple of weeks.
All right. Fantastic. Thank you.